Welcome to the J Morton podcast. We're already 3 episodes into the 7 episodes that touch on the mindset strategy I explored in my recent book, Soldier, so I hope you're enjoying it so far. I'm Jay and I'll be joined for each episode by a guest who's earned the respect in their own life adventures. Today's subject is leadership, and my special guest is Dylan Hartley. But before we get into the episode, I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsors, Harley Davidson, an iconic brand that could teach us a thing or two about leadership. From the first bike they built in a tiny shed in 1903 to being the first mainstream motorcycle manufacturer to introduce a fully electric vehicle in the award-winning Livewire. Harley's a brand that totally embraces the freedom and adventure that comes with carving your own road. I'll be trying their industry-leading tech on the new Pan America motorcycle very soon. But before I do, let's get into today's episode. And my guest, who potentially knows more about leadership than anyone I know, ex-England rugby captain, Dylan Hartley.
I've only been waiting half an hour and I decided to eat a banana right before we start. Right, let's go. Morning, Jay.
Morning, Dylan. How are we?
Good, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
Good. Thanks for being on. How's life?
All right, yeah. Diverse. Still trying to work it out. People kind of say, what do you do now? And I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I'm the same though. I probably finished my military career at the same time you finished rugby, so 2018.
Yeah, around then, yeah. It was winding down for about 3-4 years.
Yeah, but same with me though. Like I'd already finished before I finished.
Did you know that though? Did you know it was coming? Well, mine was a bit like, if you can get to 35 as a sportsman, especially in rugby, you've done well. So it was like impending doom. Mm-hmm. I knew it was coming. But yeah, it still doesn't prepare you, I suppose. Liberating though, right? Yeah.
I remember for me, it's probably 3 or 4 years prior to actually getting out. I was actually in the mountains and I found myself.
What? So you're up Mount Tibetibu and you were doing yoga on the peak of Mount Tibetibu.
Literally, I was talking to a tree.
Okay.
And now for me, it was just, I don't know, I've been involved in, whatever for so many years, and I was just like, there's so much more to life than this. And then for the next 4 years, it was all about, I don't know, just winding down. I knew I was getting out, and I remember when I got out, one of the lads turned around and was like, Jay, you were a civvy when you were in, so it's no surprise that you're getting out. And drove off.
There's a few moments of the harsh realities of it, and I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. It's just the reality of it. It's almost like you're on the physio table, and I needed probably 3-4 hours a day of kind of prep or wind down or recovery to train probably an hour a day to be on the field for an hour. I needed to be in the swimming pool, mobility. I needed osteo, I needed massage, I needed treatment on my knee and my hips. That was just to do like 45 minutes rugby session on the field. And
so to train, you needed to like physio and pre-warm.
Yeah. And that's not unusual. That's not because I was injured. A lot of older players are like that.
Yeah.
It's almost what you're doing before and after training is more important. Mm-hmm. So I was doing a lot of that. And then like the day you retire, it's like I didn't have access to all those things that were kind of keeping my body together.
Yeah.
So like now, 18 or almost 2 years on, I'm kind of like picking up the physical pieces, trying to put myself back together. Because all those, the infrastructure or the facilities that you had as a professional, they're just, I don't know, I can't just turn up. I probably could just turn up and start using stuff, but like, what you're doing there. So the physio, all those things that you kind of take for granted. And I did it for 16 years, so to not have it now is quite hard,
What were those things?
What I kind of alluded to before, swimming pool every day,
so just
pre or post.
Just doing lengths and just getting blood flowing in the body with a swimming cap on.
Not like
Can you swim,
Baywatch.
Dylan?
I can. I mean, body fat's high, so I float really well. But it's more mobility, so like being in chest deep water or waist height water, doing like hip mobility and all those sorts of things.
Because that must have been like quite advanced methods, being like a professional sports person.
Yeah, I mean,
in terms of
I
not
didn't
many
have to
people
do it, but I worked with loads of different physios and stuff, and I found things. And when you're mid-30s and you've been playing sport for that long, you work out what you need to do. And yeah, I was just spending more time getting ready for training and winding down from training to get ready for training the next day than I spent actually training. So like in terms of when you finish, that's one of the harsh realities of that whole kind of support network. Physically goes. Mentally, I was gone. Like it's weird because I played with at my club. I stayed at one club. I played with over 200 players. So that's 200 guys. 200 partners, 200 families. So it's all kind of a blur. And when you're coming through young, free, and single, I had big boozy nights. Going out midweek with the boys, playing at the weekend, doing all that sort of stuff. My kind of close friendships that I made at that time, we all kind of aged, people move clubs, people get married, people have families, and it all just, the dynamic changes. So when I was 32, 33, I look around the room and I'm announcing my retirement. I didn't know half the room. There was academy guys there that are 18 years old, and there's probably 4 or 5 faces in that crowd that I could kind of connect with. People like a Courtney Laws or someone, Tom Wood, people like that I'd had my whole careers with. So, and then you look at the 18-year-olds, they're all doing what I was doing 10 years prior,
Boozing it up and
I just knew it was, I'd done it all. Not completed it, definitely not completed it, but in my mind, I'd got what I want from it. And it's funny because when you're younger, you can give yourself to the organisation, to the team, to your craft, I suppose. Then as you get older, man, like when you have kids and you get married and stuff like that, your priorities change. And then after training, there's almost a demand to get home to your other life, your real life, you know what I mean? Whereas when you're younger, you can stay and you can doss about, you can play table tennis all afternoon, you can drink coffees, you can talk shit all day. But as soon as you have your family, you've got priorities. I remember waking up on the morning of a game, professional rugby player. I was playing for England at the time, but like I'd wake up the morning of a game, and when you wake up at home with kids, like you're not the priority. You got to be selfless, not selfish. And it's like sort the kids' nappy, sort the kids' milk, then do the kids' breakfast. Then the dogs need feeding, and then someone turns up with a delivery. And I'm looking at the time, and I'm like, I've got a home game. And it's like 12 o'clock. I've got to be in for 1. I'm like, fuck, I haven't drunk any water today. I haven't eaten any breakfast. Yeah. So like professional sportsman, like all that other shit kind of came before then having to go to work. So that's where I knew it was like, there was time as well.
It's crazy how much of a comparison there is to, playing, especially a sport like rugby at a professional level and being in the special forces. There's a lot of comparisons. I think, being in the special forces, you are at the top tier of soldiers within the world. Being an international rugby player, you are the top tier of, rugby players within the world. And even reading your book, The Hurt, there's
You read it, yeah?
Yeah, I read it. I listened to it.
I'm sorry I didn't do the audio.
Yeah, I was good.
They didn't trust me with that.
Really?
No, I didn't even get the option.
Didn't you?
No.
I read mine.
Yeah, I know. I've listened to it. Did you send it to me? No.
Did you?
Bookstores were closed.
I bought yours. You didn't even send me one.
Oh man.
I bought the hard copy.
Yeah.
I bought the audio book.
Oh my.
I struggle reading. Like reading word for word.
Yeah, I can't.
Takes too long.
Yeah, I get bored as well. And then
put it
ends
down
up on the shelf and
put it
you
down,
lose it.
Pick it up.
Yeah.
So I was saying before, I could listen to yours at 1.6. So I smashed through it in like 5 hours. Haskell's, I had to slow him down.
Right. The thing is with Hass, it's actually
0.9.
funny. It's an entertaining book, whereas mine's probably a bit it's probably not as interesting. I could read James's over and over again.
Yeah, it's funny.
I was part of some of the stories, that's why.
I
think he's got a different name for me in the book though.
Has he? the drinking games. Because you're from New Zealand, right?
Yeah.
What's the drinking game? So he mentions the drinking game the New Zealand lads play where you all go and climb a tree, drink 5 beers and then come back down.
The hermit half dozen?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's in rugby circles. it's just a good way before you even start a team social, because when you have a team social like court session or something, you always get guys that just sit there and the beer steam starts coming off them, like they hold them for that long. So we done things, the Hermit Half Dozen basically. I don't endorse drinking alcohol,
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, it's really
so bad.
Great for team bonding though.
Yeah.
But yeah, before we'd even start, you'd have to bring a 6-pack and you'd have to sit quietly by yourself and just like imagine 40 to 50 blokes in a room, not allowed to talk. If you talk, you had to kind of see it off. No talking, and you had to finish your half dozen.
Do you drinking fast, or are you just like sat there
at whatever pace you want? But you're allowed to join
once you've finished.
Yeah, the party or the circle. You're allowed to talk once you're finished, and you're allowed to go toilet once you're finished as well.
Is it a good game?
The Hermit Half does, yeah, because you basically then you start official proceedings and everyone's on a good level.
Right, wasted.
Yeah, drink responsibly. Yeah, Hermit Half.
No, I think.
And then some guys like, basically, I remember the first time we did it, we said everyone's got to bring 6 beers, and I think they thought that was their contribution to the party. You know, we'd have a big table, we'd all put our beers on the table and we'd all share and that. So you saw some guys like me that knew what was happening. You'd get like what's the normal can? 330 mils.
That's like a can of Coke, isn't
yeah,
it?
Yeah,
Like that small
so I got
can,
like a 6-pack like that because I knew what was happening. But you get those craft beers?
Yeah, the massive ones.
Yeah, they're like over half a litre jobbies. Guys brought like 6 of those and you saw their little hearts sink when they knew what was happening.
Yeah.
But Hermit Half, yeah, that's, give it a crack.
Have you seen like a massive change in professional sport in terms of, say, drinking culture and training culture?
Yeah, I mean, you always get... So alcohol and drinking culture at the top, you just can't do it now. I think there's a few branches to that tree. I mean, there's social media, there's expectation and demand from a professional standpoint, as a role model kind of standpoint. But then the training and the games come thick and fast now. You can't put yourself in a hole, and because you're being selected to play at the weekend on what you're doing on Monday, Tuesday. So if you're flagging in any of those, and for me, some of that like skin folds, my body weight went up and down when I played. So for me to cut out alcohol was just like the sensible thing to do. But yeah, that just changed in like a decade. Back then, when I started, it was the culture.
Yeah,
it was the culture of what we probably, or our listeners perceive rugby to be. Kind of train hard, play hard.
Very, very similar to the military. It's the same when I joined the military, and we're similar ages, right? You're 35, I'm 30.
I'm younger.
I'm 30.
You've got a full head of hair and less wrinkles, though.
I can walk, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very similar in the military. It was when I first joined, everyone went out on a Thursday night, got smashed. Everyone went out on a Friday night, Saturday night. And I remember everyone would go out on a Thursday night, and it was a place called Chicago's in Colchester. It was $W, so it was 2 for 1 on everything. Everyone got smashed. And then that was back when places closed at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So you get back, get 5-6 hours sleep. And Friday was always a Friday tab. So, 35 pounds, weapon. You go out as a platoon and do, 10 miles. And I remember on Friday it was like a regular thing for people to be vomiting and throwing up on this tab. And you'd be like at the back as a marker, just smelling all this sick. But I think the military definitely changed. And even, the relationship, listening to your book and hearing when you joined playing rugby, that was the way that the old boys were, right? Everyone drank beer, everyone, there's a laughing joke on Special Forces selection that you didn't need like the sports supplements, the rehabilitation, the foam rollers, the putting the tight tights on in the middle of the night and stretching and cold baths. You didn't need that. You just needed, a packet of chips and can of Guinness.
Yeah,
and that was your recovery back then.
But that's culture, right?
But you didn't have the recovery.
Well.
You didn't have the recovery, did you? You didn't know what compression tights were or what foam rollers did. And I remember on selection seeing the Royal Marine lads, and we'd all come back in from a tab. And
what's the tab?
Tactical Advance to Battle.
Of course it is.
You should know that.
Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah. That's what I do. Yeah, a tab.
But we'd come back in from a march, right? We'll just call it a march.
Yeah.
And so I'd do the cold, like flush the legs with cold, at the time just because it felt good, right?
Yeah.
You didn't know the science behind it. I'd stretch, and then for me it was about eating, so consuming as many calories as possible. And you had like the flappers that would be up. You know, you have flappers, right? It's a normal term, like flapping like a bird. It's like a flapper, right? So if you're,
someone that flapping that's kind of erratic and
if you don't have the confidence in what you're doing, you generally flap.
Yeah.
And you'd have the flappers, generally raw marine lads, and they'd be up till 10, 11 o'clock at night. The classic was, so you pack your kit, right? You pack your burger and you get it ready for the next night. The classic was the full unload followed by the reload, which was so you weigh your burger and you weigh your kit, you make sure you've got the right kit and the right weight for the next day. They'd take it all out and then repack it and reweigh it.
Why?
Because they're flappers.
So if you just do it once, do it properly, you kind of trust that it's done. And,
yeah, but
and
you know when you leave your house and then you think, fuck, did I lock the door? And you go back and check the door.
Nah, I don't.
I don't.
Nah.
But then I don't.
Yeah, no, because I've got order. I've got processes on how I do things. Yeah. Okay.
And I almost don't really care if I turn up the next day with less or more weight, because I know that I've weighed it and it's correct. And if my head then turns around and goes, oh, what if you got underweight? I'm also just like, well, I don't really care.
What's the significance of being underweight? Do you get measured?
Oh, you get like a rock, and you'd have to, you end up getting more weight. But the more weight it's like the more weight you're carrying around in that march, the harder that march is going to be.
Yeah.
So if you turn up with less weight when the weight is supposed to be, say, 50 pounds, and you've got 49, they're probably going to give you like a massive rock to stick in your Bergen for that
make
march.
Weight, yeah.
And you're going to have to show that rock at the end. So they're looking after that.
I was thinking something. As two old timers now, retired or whatever you want to call yourself. Semi old timers. Do you look at is training environments now? I need to think of a different word. Not soft, but has sports science kind of taken over? So like the mental edge to training, has that changed? Because I'll give you a quick example. When I first started my journey, I played with like the amateur crossover. So rugby went pro in 95. I went professional in 03 when England won the World Cup. So the guys that had kind of worked jobs, played professionally, like they were still playing. So I played with some of the old school. And I remember training back in the day, like you come in as a young guy, they would literally try and break you. And that's probably how I forged my career, because I just hung on in there. And the training we used to do, we would do some military-based stuff, like crawling and just going on a stupid run, carrying shit. And it didn't matter if you're 130 kilos or 90 kilos, you'd do the same amount of work because it was good for team building. Yeah. And I truly believe like that was... There's a need for some of that, because it built like a mental resilience of keep going. So again, in rugby, you only train, like sports science says, you only train for like an hour on feet. You can only be out, you can only do so much good, but anything over an hour and a half, you kind of...
It's like degradation.
Yeah, it's just, standards start dropping and it's pointless. And I remember being out when I was like 20, 21 years old, and you knew when the session was going beyond 2 hours. You get the old sideways eyes. You'd never mention it. And you'd see one guy saying, how many more left, or something like that. And they'd go, what that, 10 more now, because you'd asked the question. Whereas now, when I finish, like pre-season, you go out, it's like, right, academy, you've got Wednesdays off because you're not physically developed yet. We need to look after you. Yeah. And okay, guys, on the line, we're going to do 4 sets of, 30-second turnarounds, or whatever that means. It's almost like just straight line
drills.
Running, 10 seconds rest, and then we're going to repeat. We're going to do 4 sets of that. So everyone knows exactly what we're doing, and that's the session. And everyone can say, how many are we doing? And I think that that created like almost mental weakness, because you were being prescribed what you're going to do. Whereas in a game, or my question to you is, when you're in the field, there are no rules. The rules change, the scenario changes in a game. You're not just doing 4 sets in a game. It could go to 8 sets. So I kind of look back at my early experiences and go, it was old school, but it created far more mental resilience and physical resilience as well.
Yeah.
And that's not to say like sports science saved me in the end, because the 2-hour sessions were pointless. But did that happen in the military?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like what you said about resilience, right? the early stages where it was more about just thrashing the soldier and just, it was all about doing as much as you can and going as far as you can and carrying as much weight. And there was a sense of personal pride within a soldier, especially a soldier that was in the parachute regiment of the Marines or the SAS or SBS. It was personal pride that you could, carry the most weight, go for it longer than anyone else, whether it was in the desert or the jungle. Even just, I remember when I first passed out as a paratrooper, the GPMG gunner was prestigious to be the GPMG gunner. So this massive machine gun that weighs, I want to say about 10 kgs, but it weighs more than a normal weapon. And your job is, you're fire support. So you've got to be able to lug this 10 kg weapon to the top of a hill and, provide fire support for the rest of the section or platoon to come through. So you've got a very important job. But the ammunition's a bigger ammunition and it comes on link and it weighs way heavier than what the rifle guys have got, right? But you're supposed to dish it out and split it up and give everyone in the section an equal amount, but you wouldn't, right? You'd keep it all to yourself. You'd have the heaviest kit, but you'd have personal pride in that. And it wasn't like anyone else gave a fuck, right? It was just you.
Yeah, but I'm sure there was like a tip of the hat to those gunners when you saw them.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah.
But like more so if you actually went into a contact with a GPMG gunner and he put down fire. Whereas it, like if you're just training and doing exercises, it's not real, is it?
I don't know.
But yeah, I think, there's definitely resilience that comes with that form of training. And it's hard, right? Because you always look back at the newer lads coming up and they all, it's like, it wasn't like that in my day, that old saying.
That's kind of what I was saying.
Yeah. But it's a difficult one, right? Because I think cultures change, not cultures, kind of generation changes, right? So a lot of stuff outside of sport or outside of the military life changes, i.e. social media. That's a big one. In terms of gym, there's a massive gym culture now, whereas there wasn't especially when I joined the military and the special forces. But yeah, so it's a fine balance of soldiers. I'd say a special forces soldier these days are way better than a special forces soldier 20 years ago. They can probably run longer. They're stronger. They're better developed. They're better shooters. They're better at their field craft and knowledge, and probably more intelligent. And they've adopted a growth mindset and probably, listened to some good podcasts. They've probably read some good books.
Like this one, yeah.
Like this one.
Yeah.
They're probably way more educated in those terms than, say, an SF soldier was 20 years ago.
But do they lack a little bit of, like, if you could drop a little bit of that old school mentality into it as well?
It's hard to say because it's a fine balance.
I think the same with rugby. Like, you want a bit of both.
Yeah, where they're better in other areas, they probably lack a little bit of that grit, maybe. But I still speak to lads that are still in now, and they say that the lads coming up now are just better soldiers because training evolves, right? Training methods evolve. I remember when I first joined, you'd rarely go and shoot. And if you think of a soldier, especially a special forces soldier, the most important part of being a soldier is shooting a weapon, right? And being able to do that accurately and precisely, and being able to carry out your stoppage drills. But you'd rarely spend time shooting. Whereas now lads are shooting week in, week out because they've realised when it actually comes down to that crunch moment, that is probably one of the most important reactionary skills that you'll ever have.
So yeah. You're kind of saying it's a good thing, like that sports science or just methods and education have improved the soldiering. Is that a word, soldiering?
Soldiering is now.
Oh, thanks.
It's evolution though.
Yeah.
And I think you've almost got to, it's a hard one, right? Because that grit, made some really good soldiers, but it's not to say that the education and the science aspect of it, if you would say science in soldiering, you know, how that's developed and come along, that doesn't still make, you know, those good soldiers.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
I get that. I think it's exactly the same in sport, you know, practices and education, and the athletes are far better. It's kind of clear to see. I
think there's a definite growth mindset within people these days, whereas you didn't have that 15, 20 years ago.
It was like a religion, wasn't it? It was like,
but you'd have
some sort of hippie stuff.
Yeah, you'd have if you meditated 20 years ago and someone found out, you would, you know, there was no WhatsApp groups back then, thank God, but you would have the piss took out of you if you meditated back then. Meditation was for, you know, hemp trouser wearing hippies.
Or you on the top of that mountain talking to the tree.
But now it's like, if you don't meditate as a professional sports person, you're weird, I'd imagine.
Visualization, meditation.
But yeah, all these things, right?
There's obviously, it's a bit like the whole mental health conversation. Like there's a bit of a stigma around it. Like I don't hate talking about mental health, but I prefer to call them mental skills. You know, I know your friend's James Haskell, and he's seen someone since he was 18, 19 years old, and he communicates that as well. Like everyone trains, everyone's following weights programs, everyone's quick, everyone's doing sprint training, you know, tactically on a rugby field. There's not too, you know, everyone's a little bit different, but it's pretty similar throughout. So like, where are you getting your edge? And it's like in your head, like how are you preparing for games, and how you're going to prepare to perform physically and mentally. So he kind of talks about it as mental skills, and I quite like that.
It's a good approach to have. I'm the same. The mental health thing, I'm sat on a fence with it. Probably because I've never seen someone myself, so I don't know the outcome of what that would be. And I think, you know, with James, he's always seen someone, right, from the start of his professional sports days. I think now I'd probably struggle to, because I've always, you know, self-therapied myself through everything. And I'm not saying that's the right or wrong way of doing it.
No, but you found your way, right?
It's always worked for me. And I feel like now I've probably got the tools in my toolbox to be able to get through any, you know, hard times or whatever. And I also understand that getting through those hard times or hard times in general are probably the most important parts of your life. And yeah, I find it like, one, for someone like me who's had probably a very different life to a lot of people, to find someone who would sit down and understand that or listen or try and make my life better by me explaining my life, for example, I'd find that difficult.
I think it depends on who you are and whether you feel like you need it. You obviously don't feel like you need it, but then
it's like, James, right? Maybe I could get a 1% or a 2% from seeing someone. It's
yeah, but you shouldn't do a disservice to yourself. I know you read and or you listen a lot. That's a skill in itself. Like, not enough people do that. You know, you can pick so much up from books or podcasts and stuff like that. And I kind of see that as a form of mental skills.
Definitely.
You know, listening to things and then trying to implement it yourself, having that sort of growth mindset to go and find that information. Like, fuck it, I'll hear you laugh, but I got rid of all my social media off my phone a couple of weeks ago. And
how was that?
It's good. I feel enlightened.
Liberating.
Uplifted, mate. Just, I feel awake. But I started listening to more books. Always kind of in between Twitter, Instagram, always podcasts and books. They're always there, but like they're always half finished. Whereas now I'm smashing through books like every 2-3 days.
Yeah.
And, you know, procrastination seems to have gone. Like, there's fuck all to do on my phone other than check an email or WhatsApp. And I feel, I just feel way more productive in terms of that. So in terms of like mental skills, for me, it's trying to educate myself by listening or reading and learning in that way. Like, I don't need to see someone as well. I don't feel like I do anyway. But I think you get it from talking to people, and loads of environments, sports, rugby environments I've been in, there's always been psychs there. And when I was 19 years old, I got my first lengthy ban. They put me in a room with Steve Peters, the Chimp Paradox.
Yeah.
And like, if I'd known, like now, I'd love to talk to him.
Yeah.
But like, you can imagine, 19-year-old kid.
Yeah.
kind of resented authority.
Probably not mentally developed either at a 19-year-old kid,
Nah.
right? You have no idea what
I was a boy
on.
in an old school men's game, like where rugby was a bit different.
Yeah.
And I obviously got in trouble, funny enough, for I got banned for, I don't want to say it because it's embarrassing, but it was James Haskell. I got banned for eye gouging. But
you gouged Haskell, didn't you?
Yeah, one of my best friends.
Were you mates then? Or?
Yeah, of course we were. I mean, not mates like we are now. I think we've become better friends because we kind of retired at the same time.
Yeah.
We've got like shared experiences, and when we look back, we played from 18 years old to 33 or whatever together. So
did you purposely eye gouge him?
Genuinely, it was reckless.
Yeah.
It was reckless. I went through a ruck and I just grabbed hold of whatever I could and pulled.
Was it a good one?
No, it did no damage. It was a good one because it didn't do any damage.
Yeah.
Which
fair,
but
yeah.
I kind of got stung bad with a big ban then. But yeah, off the back of that, I got put with a psychologist. But yeah, you can't force that sort of stuff on people.
No, and I think you're 19 years old, seeing a psychologist, like internally in your brain, you've no idea what's going on at 19, right?
I was trying to work it out, man. Like the other thing is, I was on the other side of the world. I moved away from home at 16 to the other side of the world. Like I felt like I was the boss of me. You know what I mean? Lived by myself from a young age. Worked things out by myself, and again, just resented authority. And like you put you in a sterile environment, you know, with a sports psychologist, like. And this is back in 2007, I think.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was completely alien to me. And I was only 1 year into professional sport. So, yeah, it was a bit weird. And that didn't last, basically.
Was the culture there in terms of psychologists back then?
No, it's still not there now. It's ridiculous. Like you'd think, like I alluded to before, everyone's doing tactical, technical, physical preparation, basically all the same around the world. You think the edge would be mental coaching or mental skills. And loads of clubs and organisations have kind of guys that come in 1 day a week. Man, these people should be part of the fabric. You know, it should be, you know, for anyone, even almost from an agony aunt point of view, if people have got personal issues they need help with, or mental skills on, you know, positive mindset, you know, positive affirmation going into a game, self-talk, all that sort of stuff. You hear about like how to distance yourself from chaos in a game. So like when those flash moments happen, how to step back and not forward. I don't know. There's so many things to be gained from having someone full time, but this is professional rugby. Like it is professional because players get paid, but it's not professional in so many aspects. Like things like that you think would be a number one appointment, right-hand man of the manager, you know? But yeah, it's not there. Is it in the military or not?
I think it's definitely changed from when I joined. So I joined in 2004, and at the time the British Army wasn't doing anything. And then as soon as we went to Afghanistan, that's when, you know, PTSD became a thing, and you had guys coming back from Afghan that are, you know, pretty messed up or whatever, and you didn't really know that there was help out there, or you didn't understand what help was, right? Again, we were 20 years old, 21 years old, some lads were 18, 19, and you didn't really understand, like you didn't know what a counsellor was, or you didn't know what a psychologist was. So when you came back and someone said, you know, you had the classic talk of, if any, you know, there is welfare out there, and it's usually done by, what do you call him now? He was the priest, the padre.
Yeah.
So the holy, you know, the priest or the padre would usually give you this welfare talk and explain that there is help out there. But, you know, I was 21 when I came back from the first Afghan tour in 2006, and you didn't really understand what that help was. You know, does someone plug electrodes into your brain and remap your brain, or
do I lie down on the couch and look at the ceiling?
Yeah. And I think for some guys it was essential, and there's quite a lot of people that were seeing psychologists. And
do you reckon there's a stigma around it?
Massively.
You know, like going to see the guidance counsellor, going to
massively. I think there still is.
Yeah.
I think for a man in a a massively male-dominated alpha environment to turn around and say that you're having issues, there's definitely a stigma around that.
Yeah, that's why you need to change it to like skills. You know what I mean? It's just a skill you're like working on. You work on your muscles. You know, you got big muscles. You work on your bench press, but like, are you working on your brain? You know what I mean?
I think it's an evolution, right? And I think that evolution will change because you've come back from an operational tour and you've needed to see a psychologist. If you were a really good soldier before you needed to see that psychologist, it doesn't mean that you're going to be a bad soldier when you've seen that psychologist. But it's about just, I think the culture just needs to shift to an understanding of that, maybe.
Yeah, I think we're talking about like in the environments that we've been in, but like what about in general society now? Like we've obviously had a rough kind of 18 months, 2 years almost with COVID and stuff like that. Is it 2 years? Nah, it's just over a year.
Year and a half, isn't it? It's just a year.
Like what are your thoughts on mental health in that space? Do you think it's kind of like a buzzword?
Again, mate, it's like I find it hard, right? Because I don't know. There's definitely people with some serious mental health issues.
Yeah, I think I should stipulate that. Like
100%,
you know, people with depression and people with genuine issues. But
yeah, and it's hard. It's like I find it difficult. So I've got my experiences, and I find it hard to be able to, because I think, I do a lot of things that are way different to anyone else. In terms of or maybe I don't, right? I don't even know, because I don't even know what anyone else thinks or feels or does, right? And that's, so for me to then say that, give an opinion on someone else's mental health because of what they think of, it's like, you can't, right? Because their experiences are completely different to my experiences. I can just say that, like this last year, I know what makes me happy in a day, or what makes me feel fulfilled in a day. And whether it's, like not being lazy, right? A lot of it evolves around not being lazy and making sure that I've got things to look forward to, and making sure that I'm moving forward in what I do and developing as a person. And if I can tick those things in whatever, by doing whatever, trick or method I use, then I'll go to bed and I'll feel fulfilled, and I don't get any anxiety or anything like that.
Yeah. If you've achieved in your day, and it doesn't mean you've done anything amazing, but
it might just mean that I've sent a few emails, or I've got up and worked out. But if I have a day where I don't do anything, that's when I feel shit.
Where you just kind of doss about, just bouncing and floating around. Do you know
spent like 3 hours scrolling Instagram on absolute nonsense.
Well, I think that could be a contributor to this mental health. The bulk of it, I just think like that technology is just feeding comparison. So like if you think about social media, it's just showing everyone's best lives. You know what I mean? And I think comparison is the thief of joy. You're sat there at home looking at other people having a great time, looking great, in shape, on holiday. You know what I mean? Then you look at your body, your holidays, and you're like, I don't, obviously. No, but then
everyone's doing the same, right?
But then you're sat there comparing, and then you feed that with, man, like you think about how many people are furloughed now, or on subsidies or benefits. People don't even have a purpose anymore. You don't even, like, if you took it back even 100 years, if you didn't get out of bed and go to work, you don't eat. If you don't fix your house, like, you get cold. If you don't, you don't have to get off your couch now to get food. I saw James Smith do something on that recently, and I loved it. Like, you can literally get a delivery.
That was his delivery bill.
Yeah, and you get your mate to get it from the door, so you don't even have to leave your couch. And then the money that you're paying for it, like, where's that come from? Is it benefits? Is it subsidy, furlough? So you don't have a purpose. And when you got people sat at home on technology without a purpose, getting up, going to get their food, going to work, to dig holes, to earn their money, to pay for their house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have a purpose. I'm not saying you need to do something really meaningful every day, but as long as you're ticking things off and achieving throughout the day, like you say, dealing with that pile of letters or emails, working out, because we all know fucking working out is good for you.
Yeah.
It's having a purpose, getting up and getting shit done. You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of people just sat home, scrolling their way to poor mental health. And I think that's where a lot of it's born from.
You look at it automatically. You find yourself scrolling on social media.
Well, it's like a habit, isn't it?
Yeah. So I believe that a lot of people probably don't know that they're doing that. Because I still got social media, and I'll find myself scrolling, and I'll just go, Jay, what are you doing? I'll stop doing it, and then I can put it down for the rest of the day, because I don't want to have that same feeling of scrolling, like losing 15 minutes, 20 minutes just staring at people's pictures.
Well, it's not even that. It's almost like, I don't know how to explain it, but like deep in your head, that screen time like fucks you up, man.
Yeah.
Like that does something to your head.
Like an overflow of information of. It's I don't know.
I know what you're saying. I can't explain it, but
yeah.
all that screen time is not good, effectively. So, do you know what? After again, I'm suggesting that you try it.
Delete.
No, I still have my accounts in there.
Yeah.
I need them at a certain level, but taking it off your phone. And I had a guy I played with actually. He was like, "Bro, you got to treat that shit like it's the gym. You go into the gym, you do your work, and you get out. Like if you need your social media, set yourself some time, go on, get it done, and get out. Like don't just sit there kind of killing time." Because again, like I watched the world go by today, traveling down here from London. Like everyone, and the world's kind of back to normal now. How I see it, people are sat outside pubs, cafes, restaurants, people in groups and twos and threes walking around London. But like once you've got your head up and you're looking around, everyone else has got their heads down.
That's weird. I find. Do you know if you're in a like waiting for the doctors or waiting for the dentist? Those waiting rooms are full of people just staring at the phone.
Yeah, don't talk because you're a psycho if you start a conversation with someone the train. You know what I mean?
I quite like doing that. As in, I try not to just pull my phone out in public places, but just being aware of the fact, like you said, you look around and you see how many people are just zoned into this one thing. I think Joe Rogan says it really well. He's like, imagine if aliens came to this earth and they just came down and they just saw all these monkeys just staring at the palms of the hand, this block on the palms of the hand, and just be you'd like hypnotized by this block in your hands.
But we we're asleep behind the wheel. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's funny even just walking down here.
Do you meditate, Dylan?
No, I don't. I tried it. I listen to the books. I fall asleep. I don't know. Is that kind of meditating? No. Nah. No, meditating. Listen to your own thoughts.
My book.
Listen to nothing. No, I don't. No. I will now.
Still,
but like,
still part of the
when you're present, like, there's little things that you take in, like information. So like looking at signs and road signs and shops, like you're picking up physical cues all the time. And when you're on your phone, you just miss all that. And like speaking from a family man point of view, it's so easy to have a cup of tea like we've got in front of us here, and to be just checking your phone when your kids are looking at you for, what's the word? Confirmation. Like they're constantly looking at you kind of to say, is this okay? Or Dad, look at this. And there's nothing, and parents will be able to relate to this. You feel really grubby when your kid's kind of pulling on your sleeve and you're saying, I'm doing something. And if you're not doing something worthwhile or meaningful, you feel like an absolute prick, you know what I mean? Yeah. Ever since I got rid of that, I feel way better as a dad as well.
Yeah, but I find that myself, and I'm not a father. When friends' kids are around and I'm sat staring at my mobile phone, I feel guilty because
you're showing them the way, right?
Yeah, they're absorbing everything that they see, right? And if they see me constantly staring at my phone, that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
As an 8, 9, 10-year-old, you're a sponge.
Mate, my 1-year-old son crawls, right? He's not yet walking, but he knows what the phone is. He knows it's a high value item.
Can he open it?
No, he's not there yet.
I've seen like 3-year-olds be able to open a phone.
They can't read or write or anything like that, but they know what the codes are and what start means and stuff like that on games. But my son, like, he'll crawl, and because your phone will be in your pocket or your jacket pocket and it'll fall out, he sees you with it all the time. So he associates that with you. So he picks it up. If there was 10 toys laid out, he would pick up the phone.
That's great. It's weird, isn't it? Because he sees you with it so much though, right?
Yeah. Which is and I'll tell you what, just the last sort of month without the social stuff, my phone's just become obsolete. It's a communication device now, which is what it should have been. But mate, we're kind of going way off here. But it's so good for so many things. Like the technology is so good, but I think it's fucking us in so many ways as well.
Yeah. How do you see that in sport? Because when you joined, social media wasn't a thing in sport.
Nah.
There wasn't even a WhatsApp. Like I'm not a big fan of WhatsApp groups.
Mate, we used to bring DVDs. No, DVDs weren't even a thing. Like, do you remember headphones, CD players?
Yeah. The
Like
portable ones.
Someone would have like a library of CDs, and you'd bring your CDs. And
It was always the same person who'd have like that box,
big folder.
The big folder of DVDs. It was always for us the South Africans or like the Australians that joined the military, because they lived constantly in the block. They were away from family and friends, so they were the ones that just had the biggest DVD collection.
Well prepped.
Yeah.
But I remember like the transition from the changing room before a game. You know, if you wanted music, you had your CD player, your big headphones, you got them on, did your thing. But then iPhones came in and music went onto phones, and that was the transition of no external noise to then external noise coming into the change room. So like the change room in rugby was a sacred thing. Still think it is, but there's cameras in there now. Like I know guys that go to the toilets like before they go to text their missuses and talk to their missuses and shit like that. And you look over to the guy next to you, he'll be on Snapchat, Instagram, just because it's a dirty habit. And I'm like, man, like the most important people are in this room here. You should be communicating with them, talking to your guy next door. How you feeling today? You good? You clear on that move, or the start of the game, this is what we're looking to implement. But instead it's like this dirty habit, just got to check Twitter, check, and like you're filling your head with information that you don't need, when all I want you to be thinking about is the first contact of the game, the first set piece of the game. And again, without sounding like an old grizzly miserable retired pro, like that is a massive change I saw, and one I didn't like. Guys coming in taking photos of their shirts hanging up, and I'm like, you're only taking that photo to post on Instagram to get likes for gratification. You know what I mean? You're not taking that photo to show your ma. Like you're doing it every week, but you're doing it for the likes. It's like, where's your head at? Are you here to perform, or are you here to kind of get content? It's
Is that something you saw, when you were captain of England?
Yeah.
Is that something that you see in an international changing room?
On the bus on the way to game.
Really?
Guys, because they've got their music on their phones, and the bus on the way to game is pretty quiet. It's head down. I was one of the fair few that just didn't listen to music on the way. I'd just sit and watch and look out the window.
Is that like because most people have a take away social media, most people have a pre-match prep in their own head, like
I'd say it's that. But so when you're swiping for your music and stuff though, like guess what?
In between,
you're always going to end up back there.
The Instagram monster.
Yeah. Fucking has you. And then I'm just saying, like, it just complicates things, just puts more thoughts in your head and drags you to, looking at people on holiday or right, it's good for testosterone.
Really influential,
it's
positive.
Good for test, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, it's everywhere in society now.
Do you have a pre-game ritual or warm up, or bar the acupuncture and swimming pool sessions that you do to get the body in check? Do you have a mental way of preparing before a game?
No, I got to a point where preparation for me was Monday to Friday. So performing every day there. So like Saturday was pretty well ingrained, and I don't know about you, but the more you do something, the easier it became. I didn't really get nervous at the end, and it was just business as usual. And I just tried to keep it as simple as possible. I think when you're young, you're trying to work it all out. I've got to eat this, and I've got to do this. I've got to go to bed at this time. And I if you've got your kind of foundations there of you're hydrated, you've eaten well, you've prepared well in the week. I say this to kids now. I mentor some kids, and it's like, who gets nervous before a test? And like, you get a mismatch of hands up. I say, I bet you don't get nervous before a test if you've done your homework. You want to be that kid, like if you've done your homework, you're like, pick me, I've got the answer type thing. Same thing before a race or before anything. If you've been training for 3 months running 5K and you've got 5K race, like you're ready to compete. And I think the only time I got nervous is if I didn't know my stuff. So like being a hooker, the amount of line out combinations stored in my head, I was like Rain Man by the end of it. But if you went in not knowing, you can't commit fully to an action if you're second guessing yourself. So it basically came down to knowing if I'd done Monday to Friday really well, tick those boxes off, Saturday became really easy. The same thing with like, or it's fucking crazy because I played with this American dude, Tongan American, best player I ever played with, Samu Mana'a. He used to chew tobacco before a game, spit into a bottle. Like,
the Americans love that, don't they?
But he wouldn't warm up. He wouldn't warm up. And there's me, like, you know, in my process of the 4 or 5 years I played with him, trying things, you know, everything from massage guns to stretching to fire ups. You know, we started doing like Olympic lifting fire ups and mobility, and sometimes I go out in the field and visualize, do all this. He used to sit there, chew tobacco, go out and just smack it every week, like smack it out of the park. I was like, that's Samu. He's just, yeah.
There was always those guys, right? It was the same in the military. There was always those guys that would be able to stick 10 pints of Guinness on a Thursday, get up on a Friday at 6 a.m, be whistling, like, you know, no hangover, be able to perform at the best that they've ever been able to perform. You know, their diet was always, you know, they'd eat McDonald's and, you know, fish and chips and all the stuff that you shouldn't eat, but always be shredded, always be like in good shape. Yeah, I've never been one of those guys.
Me neither. Shredded. What's shredded?
Yeah. Did growing up in New Zealand and playing rugby in New Zealand, did you always feel that you would end up playing internationally?
Nah, I wasn't good enough. I didn't make like rep teams as a kid. I always played a year ahead as well. And I think that was good for me. I wasn't, you know, look at me, physically I wasn't that impressive as a kid. You know, trying to make rugby in New Zealand was pretty difficult. But I was down the pecking order. So yeah, at 16, I was playing a good standard in that, but I wasn't, you know, we had a future All Black in there, a couple of professional rugby players in there. I wasn't really cutting the mustard. So is that saying, cut the mustard?
It is now.
Thank you. Dylan Hartley, cut the mustard. So yeah, I just looked to mix it up. Found an opportunity and pursued it. But I created the opportunity as well, which is, you know, when I look back at it, you've got to be assertive, you know what I mean? You've got to make your own luck. Because a lot of people say they want to do something. I didn't know I was doing this at the time, but now after umpteen bloody podcasts and talking to kids and doing Q&As and that, like loads of people make plans or say they want to do something but don't commit to it. Mm-hmm. Whereas I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do, and the pathway I had in New Zealand wasn't there. So I basically made a different path for myself and I committed to that.
Do you think that's just an age thing though? Because looking back on, a lot of people say to me, do you think, you know, did you want to be in the Special Forces when you were younger, or did you know that you'd be in the Special Forces? And I didn't have a clue. Like, you know,
what, it just happened?
Like I'm like you, right? I had an idea of what I wanted my life to look like or be like, but you know, in terms of specifics, I would never have turned around to someone when I was, say, 19 or 20 and said that in 5 years that I'd be in the Special Forces. But I had an idea that, you know, when I joined the military, I joined the paras because it was difficult. It was seen as a harder route to go down than just joining, say, the engineers or joining to be a medic. And there's an element of kudos that comes with that, right? And then I don't know, like I found myself on selection, and whether that was because I wanted to be better and do better, like a growth mindset thing, or I just ended up on there, right? I didn't really know much about the Special Forces or the SAS, but I don't know, I just found myself, there was, like, I didn't go, right, I want to go on selection, this is the only thing that I want to do. If I don't pass this, then...
Yeah, I think you set yourself up for... So what I'm hearing is, like, I think you don't want to be a dick and go, I'm going to be in the Special Force at 24. I never said at 21, I'm going to play international rugby.
Yeah.
But I think deep down, you got burning ambitions, and, you know, publicly to my friends and family, I'd say I'm going to chase this rugby thing. I really want to give this rugby thing a go. So I'll talk about it, but, like, you don't want to set the lofty things, because...
Yeah, you want to be you want to have some humility about yourself,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, deep down, I think
And
I
if you
had a
fail, you look
burning
like a
desire.
knob.
Yeah, exactly. You don't
Yeah.
want to be a dick and say, I'm going to do this, and then you don't. But I think deep down, I don't know about you, but I had a burning desire to play at the highest level. But you don't just go straight to the highest level. There's a process, you know, you got to do the rep stuff or paras before selection, you know what I mean? So it was a process, and I think when you're in the process, you kind of the incremental sort of progression, you know, like step by step, you start getting a bit better, and you all of a sudden, like, shit, I'm a professional rugby player now playing domestic rugby in England. The next step, I suppose, is to play international rugby, and like that's there for you if you want it. Like you're at that level now, go for it. So, yeah, man, like I think you've got to have ambition, and I think you've got to have plans or something in place, because especially if you want something, you know, if you don't want anything and you just go along, you end up in the special forces or playing international rugby, that's great. You must be really good at what you do. But like, I think if it's not clear and obvious the path for you, you've got to try and make that path clear and obvious, if that makes sense. Talk about it, write it down. I didn't write it down, but I initiated a process, you know, moved to England.
Yeah.
You know, any opportunity to play, any trial, I'll go. Got an offer to go join a second division academy, championship academy, joined that on a promise of money. Got like fuel expenses, but I could tell mum and dad I was professional. I was basically lying. And then play Northampton on a Monday night, ask them if I can go there because they're a better club, better facilities. And again, ask the question, can I come here? Always kind of driving your own career. So yeah, I reckon you got to have a plan, and again, the humility to ask for help as well. You know, shit just doesn't happen. You gotta make it happen.
Yeah, true. Final question. If you could give any advice to anyone that wanted to become a professional sports person, what would you give them?
I'd say just what we finished on then. Have a chat with yourself about what you want to achieve, and find help to get you there. Does that make sense? Make a plan.
Yeah.
Make a plan, commit to it. And, you know, lofty ambitions, whatever, it can seem a million miles away. But, again, these kids I'm talking to at the moment, I'm working with, they're kind of 16, 17, 18. And there's no reason why they can't. There's other professional rugby players at 18 years old, you know. Owen Farrell and George Ford were capped at 19 years old. It's like, why can't you do it? Make a plan. You might not be strong enough now, but if you start lifting weights every week for 3 years, if you start doing speed training, skill training, but you need a plan to do that. And guess what? You need people to help you. You need to get good advice. So like, it wasn't until 30 I actually started caring about training, mobility, stretching. Like the older I got, the more mature I got in less trouble, and I started playing slightly better, more consistently. Not like smashing any records or anything, but just doing my job really efficiently. But it wasn't.
Do you think that's like fitness is a bit of a gift when you're younger, isn't it? Especially staying injury free.
Yeah, 100%. I used to like play, go out on the smash.
Yeah.
You know, whereas if I played now, it would take me 3 days to put myself back together. If you put alcohol on top of that, like 4 days.
Yeah.
But I think young people, it's like, get help. There's people with like sports science degrees in like S&C. There's people with diet advice, nutrition. There's people sports psych with mental skills. Like, you think with the growth mindset of coaches now, coaches are trying to improve. There's different methods of coaching. Like, find good coaches to help you with your technique on whatever it is. So I think just make a plan and find help to execute your plan. And like, the plan ain't going to go fucking 100% right. There's going to be setbacks along the way, but at least you're doing something about it. If you don't make a plan, you don't even get past week one. You know what I mean? You just fall into old habits of chaos. Need order, mate. Chaos and order. Need order and routine.
Yeah, I prefer chaos. I think there's setbacks though, and you know, definitely the more difficult parts of your career are potentially the most important parts.
Formative, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Experience a good
You
teacher.
get the most.
And all that.
You get the most from them, right?
100%. Losing, the best lessons come in losing, or I suppose in your world, losing's not really an option, is it? But I suppose that's the one difference between sport and what you did, is that there's always another chance. Like, you lose one week, it sucks, but like, as long as I learned this later in my career as well, it was a good thing, as long as you didn't lose for like the same thing again. And I suppose when you're on the field, losing ain't really an option, is it?
No, I think, that's why we stack the odds in our favour as best as we can, whether that's with fire support, whether that's with, even the medical team on the ground, or the amount of numbers on the ground. It's got to be greater than the threat that we're fighting.
Super Army soldiers.
Super Army soldier. Dylan, thank you. Thanks to our sponsors, Harley Davidson, who have helped make this latest adventure possible. Check them out at harley/davidson.com, or give @Harley_UKI a follow on Twitter. Thank you.